What if everything standing in your way isn't blocking you, but actually pushing you forward? Most people fight their obstacles, but what if the secret to success is to stop resisting and start using them? The obstacle is not a barrier, it's a teacher. This idea sounds simple, almost too simple, but when you start looking at your life through this lens, everything changes. Think about how often you meet resistance. Plans fall apart, people disappoint you, opportunities vanish, unexpected problems show up at the worst possible time. Most people see those moments as interruptions, as something unfair or unfortunate that needs to be removed before life can return to normal. But what if those interruptions are exactly what you need? What if the struggle you're going through is shaping you, sharpening your thinking and developing resilience you'll need later? When you see the obstacle as a teacher, you stop asking why it happened and start asking what it's trying to teach you. Every challenge carries a lesson, even if you don't see it immediately. Some obstacles teach patience, forcing you to slow down and accept that not everything happens on your timeline. Some teach humility, reminding you that no matter how much you know or how much experience you have, life will still test you. Others teach creativity by pushing you to find a solution that isn't obvious. You might not appreciate the lesson while you're in it, but when you look back, you often realize that the difficulty had a purpose. The person you became during the struggle was a better version of the person you were before it. When you shift your mindset in this way, obstacles lose their power to control you. You're no longer reacting emotionally to every inconvenience. Instead, you're observing, reflecting, and learning. This doesn't mean the challenge disappears or becomes easier, but your relationship to it changes. When you expect obstacles to teach you something, you approach them with curiosity rather than frustration. That curiosity creates space for better choices, steadier emotions, and more intentional actions. You don't grow when life is smooth. You grow when life applies pressure. Think about times you become stronger physically, mentally, emotionally. None of that strength came from comfort. Strength is built in moments when you're forced to push past what you think you can handle. Life uses obstacles the same way a coach uses training weight. It's not to punish you, it's to build you. The more resistance you face, the more capable you become. But only if you face it with the right mindset. If you resist the lesson, complain about it, or avoid it, you lose the benefit. If you lean in and look for what the obstacle is shaping within you, the growth becomes real. Obstacles also reveal your character. When something goes wrong, your automatic reaction tells you who you currently are. Do you panic? Do you blame others? Do you shut down? Do you rush to solve it without thinking? These reactions show you your habits, your weak points, your emotional patterns. They show you where you need more discipline, more patience, or more clarity. That awareness is a form of teaching. The obstacle acts like a mirror, reflecting the parts of yourself that you rarely notice when things are easy. Without obstacles, those blind spots would stay hidden, and hidden weaknesses eventually become bigger problems. When you see obstacles as teachers, those weaknesses turn into opportunities to grow instead of reasons to criticize yourself. Many obstacles also push you toward paths you wouldn't have explored otherwise. You lose a job and discover a passion you never had time for. A relationship ends and forces you to focus on personal growth. A financial setback teaches you the discipline you avoided for years. The discomfort creates movement. The movement creates direction. The direction creates transformation. You don't notice this in the moment because it usually feels like you're being pushed backwards. But often, you're being pushed exactly where you need to go. Another powerful lesson obstacles teach is acceptance. Not passive acceptance, but a grounded, balanced understanding that life won't always follow your plan. When you stop expecting life to be smooth, challenges don't shock you. They feel like part of the process. This type of acceptance reduces stress, anxiety, and overreaction. You move through life with steadiness rather than emotional turbulence. The obstacle teaches you that your peace can be internal, not dependent on circumstances. Obstacles also teach discipline. When something blocks your way, you need focus, consistency, and effort to move through it. You can't just wish your way past difficulty. You have to work. That work forms habits. Habits shape identity, and identity shapes your future. Many people wish for a better life but avoid the challenges required to build it. If you start seeing your obstacles as instructors, you realize that discipline isn't a punishment, it's a path. Each challenge makes you a more disciplined version of yourself, and that discipline becomes a foundation you can rely on. There's also wisdom in learning to pause when obstacles arise. Instead of reacting instantly, you create a moment of space. In that space, you ask better questions. What is this situation showing me about myself? What skill do I need to handle this? What belief is being tested? What fear is being triggered? That pause is not weakness, it's awareness. It's the beginning of wisdom. The obstacle teaches you to slow down, think clearly, and respond intentionally rather than emotionally. Even when the obstacle is painful, the lesson is valuable. Pain is a harsh but effective teacher. It exposes what matters to you. It shows you what you need to let go of. It reveals what you've been holding on to out of fear rather than purpose. Pain teaches you that you are capable of more than you imagined. It teaches you resilience, adaptability, and emotional depth. Without painful obstacles, you would remain shallow in your understanding of yourself and the world. Obstacles also show you the limits of control. You learn that you can't control timing, outcomes, or other people. You learn that the only real control you have is over your mindset, your actions, and your attitude. This realization is freeing. You stop wasting energy on things outside your influence. Instead, you put your focus where it actually matters: your effort, your clarity, your choices. The obstacle teaches you to let go of what doesn't serve you and hold tight to what does. Finally, obstacles train you to transform frustration into fuel. When you stop seeing resistance as an attack on your life and start seeing it as raw material for growth, you develop a powerful inner strength. Each difficulty becomes something you use. Each setback becomes a chance to gain something new. Each moment of pressure becomes a moment of progress. The obstacle is not here to stop you. It's here to shape you, refine you, and prepare you for the next stage of your life. You can't control events, only your response. This is one of those truths that sounds obvious when you hear it. Yet most people live as if the opposite were true. They spend their days trying to control timing, outcomes, other people's decisions, how the world treats them, and whether life unfolds according to their personal script. And when it doesn't, which is almost always, they feel frustrated, angry, anxious, or defeated. But the moment you accept that events are outside your control and your response is the only thing you ever truly own, life becomes lighter, clearer, and far more manageable. This mindset isn't passive. It isn't giving up. It's the ultimate form of strength because it places your energy where it actually matters. Every day, you wake up into a world that moves with or without your permission. The weather doesn't ask for your approval. Traffic doesn't rearrange itself because you're late. People don't behave according to your expectations. Plans don't always unfold the way you imagine them. Even your own body sometimes works in ways you didn't predict. Trying to bend all of this into submission is like trying to stop the tide with your hands. You waste energy, you build frustration, and you end up exhausted without changing anything meaningful. But your response, that's different. Your response is the one place where your influence is real. Your mindset, your actions, your choices, your attitude, those are yours. They can't be taken from you unless you give them away. When something goes wrong, the first instinct for many people is to become reactive. They panic or blame or complain. These reactions feel natural, even justified, but they only make the situation heavier. They don't change the event, they only magnify its impact. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. They believed that events themselves are neutral. It's the judgment you attach to them that determines how you experience them. A delay can feel like a disaster or an opportunity to slow down depending on your response. Failure can be humiliating or educational. A criticism can be taken as an attack or as information. The event is the same. The response makes the difference. When you consciously choose your response, you create space between stimulus and reaction. That space is where your power lives. In that pause, even if it's just a second, you can choose clarity instead of chaos. You can ask yourself what matters in this moment. You can decide whether the emotion rising inside you is useful or destructive. You can choose action instead of impulse. People who practice this aren't emotionless, they're aware. And awareness is what separates control from chaos. Nothing drains your energy faster than trying to control things you were never meant to control. Trying to change people who don't want to change. Trying to predict the future down to the smallest detail. Trying to prevent every problem before it appears. Trying to force outcomes your way. This creates anxiety because you're taking responsibility for things that aren't yours. But when you shift that energy inward, toward your response, you become grounded. You understand that life may not follow your plan, but you can still move through it with strength and purpose. Responding well doesn't always mean being calm or positive. Sometimes responding well means stepping back, choosing not to react immediately, or allowing yourself to feel emotion without letting that emotion control your actions. Sometimes it means taking responsibility for your choices, even when that's uncomfortable. Sometimes it means adjusting your expectations or accepting that something didn't go the way you hoped. There's power in being able to choose an intentional response instead of letting circumstances dictate your behavior. Think about the people you admire. Almost all of them share one trait: emotional control. Not control over others, not control over situations, but control over themselves. They remain centered when things go wrong. They think clearly when everyone else panics. They make decisions based on values, not impulses. This isn't magic. It's the result of training. The habit of focusing on what's within their influence and letting go of the rest. When you do this consistently, your life stops feeling like a series of emergencies. You start to realize that your inner stability matters more than outside circumstances. When someone angers you, you recognize that their behavior is outside your control, but your reaction is not. When a plan falls apart, you accept that the outcome wasn't yours to dictate. But the next step is, when you face a setback, You stop wasting time wishing it hadn't happened and start looking at how to respond with clarity. This shift builds resilience. It creates a sense of internal power that can't be taken away by external events. There's also freedom in accepting that you can't control the future. You can prepare, plan, and act wisely, but the outcome is always uncertain. Many people fear uncertainty because they want guarantees. But you never actually had control to begin with. The only guarantee is your ability to choose how you meet whatever comes your way. When you put your energy into your response, you become adaptable. You stop resisting change and start working with it. You also become more present. When you're obsessed with controlling outcomes, your mind is always in the future. When you're stuck on past mistakes or disappointments, your mind is trapped behind you. But when you focus on your response in this moment, you return to the one place where life actually happens. This present moment awareness makes you calmer, sharper, and more effective. It's impossible to respond wisely when you're lost in worry or regret. Over Tim. Choosing your response becomes a way of living. You start noticing when your emotions try to take over. You start recognizing patterns, moments where you typically react without thinking. You start building space between what happens and what you do next. This doesn't mean you'll always respond perfectly. No one does. But even when you slip, you notice it faster and regain control sooner. That's growth. That's mastery. Life will always present events you can't predict or shape. People will act in ways you don't expect. Circumstances will shift without warning. Plans will succeed or fail. Opportunities will open and close. None of this is fully yours, but your response, your ability to choose your thoughts, your words, your actions, remains yours in every situation. And when you commit to mastering that part, you begin to experience a deeper form of freedom, one that doesn't depend on the world behaving the way you want it to. Every challenge contains an opportunity for growth. It's easy to hear this and nod along, but the real understanding doesn't come from agreeing with the idea. It comes from living through moments that test you and realizing afterward that the challenge changed you in ways comfort never could. Most people see challenges as interruptions, disruptions, or roadblocks that block progress. But if you look closer, almost every difficulty you've ever faced has carried something inside it that pushed you to evolve. Sometimes the opportunity is obvious. Most of the time it's hidden under frustration, fear, or uncertainty. But it's always there, waiting for you to notice it. The truth is, the human mind prefers ease, routine, and familiarity. We like knowing what's coming. We like feeling safe and comfortable. Yet comfort rarely pushes us to grow. When everything is predictable, you stay the same. Challenges create pressure, and pressure forces adaptation. When you experience a setback, you're pushed to rethink your choices. When you lose something important, you're pushed to reevaluate your priorities. When you're forced into situations you didn't choose, you're pushed to uncover strengths you didn't know you had. Growth begins in moments where you would prefer not to be. You don't grow when things are easy. You grow when things demand something new from you. Think about any moment in your life when you became stronger, wiser, or more capable. Maybe you had to rebuild after a failure. Maybe you had to recover from a loss. Maybe you had to start over when everything felt uncertain. In those moments, you didn't feel growth happening. You probably felt overwhelmed or confused, but something inside you was shifting. You were learning resilience, adaptability, discipline, or patience. Those lessons don't come from comfort. They come from challenges. And the deeper the challenge, the deeper the transformation. There's also something powerful about being pushed into situations you didn't plan. Life has a way of placing you in environments that expose your weaknesses and demand improvement. A difficult job forces you to develop skills you would have avoided. A conflict teaches you communication or self-control. A mistake forces you to pay attention to details. Even disappointment shapes emotional maturity. These aren't punishments. They're trainings disguised as problems. Each challenge is like a weight in the gym, a source of resistance that, when lifted, makes you stronger. The weight doesn't get lighter, you get stronger because of it. Challenges also act as a spotlight. They reveal hidden parts of yourself, both strengths and flaws. When things go wrong, you see how you react under pressure. Do you freeze? Do you panic? Do you lash out? Do you avoid the problem? Whatever shows up in those moments is valuable information. T tells you exactly where your growth opportunities are. Without challenges, these weaknesses would stay buried and eventually hold you back. But with challenges, you can see them clearly and choose to work on them. At the same time, challenges reveal inner strengths you didn't realize you had. You discover that you can endure more than you thought. You find yourself taking steps that once felt impossible. You realize that even when things fall apart, you still have the ability to rebuild. Difficult situations often show you the resilience that comfort hides. When you survive something heavy, your inner belief expands. You start trusting your capacity. You gain confidence that doesn't come from external success. It comes from knowing you can handle life as it comes. Growth through challenges isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. A small inconvenience teaches patience. A delay teaches acceptance. A complicated task teaches focus. A confusing moment teaches problem solving. These small lessons accumulate. Over time, they shape your character and prepare you for bigger challenges ahead. Growth isn't always about overcoming huge obstacles. It's also about the small adjustments you make every day because life pushed you slightly out of your comfort zone. There's also opportunity in the perspective challenges give you. When life is going smoothly, it's easy to take things for granted. When something disrupts that flow, you start seeing what really matters. You appreciate stability more after losing it. You value relationships more after tension tests them. You understand your priorities better when a setback forces you to slow down. Challenges sharpen your awareness. They strip away the unnecessary noise and bring clarity about what you actually care about. Many challenges also redirect you in ways that eventually benefit you. A failed plan pushes you to a better one. A closed door forces you to explore options you would never have considered. A disappointment teaches you to adjust your expectations and become more flexible. Sometimes what feels like a setback is actually a turning point. You only see the opportunity in hindsight, but it was there all along. You were being moved, pushed, or nudged towards something more aligned with your potential. Another important part of growth through challenges is how they build emotional maturity. When things go wrong, you learn to regulate your reactions. You learn patience, forgiveness, adaptability, or courage. You start recognizing that your first emotional response isn't always the wisest one. You learn to pause, breathe, and respond with intention instead of impulse. This emotional strength becomes a foundation for every future challenge you'll face. Without emotional maturity, challenges feel heavier than they are. With it, you move through difficulty with a sense of inner stability that others can feel. Challenges also teach responsibility. When you face difficulty, you're forced to take ownership of your actions, your habits, your mindset, and your choices. You can no longer hide behind excuses or distractions. You confront yourself honestly. And in that honesty, growth begins. Responsibility isn't about blaming yourself for everything. It's about recognizing that you have power even when circumstances are hard. You can choose a constructive response. You can choose to learn. You can choose to improve. That's responsibility in its purest form. Every challenge also expands your capacity for empathy. When you go through something difficult, you understand others better. You become more patient with people who are struggling. You listen more deeply. You become less judgmental. You know what it feels like to fight internal battles, so you don't dismiss the battles of others. This growth makes you a better friend, partner, teammate, or leader because you've lived through the complexity of struggle. And perhaps one of the most important opportunities inside challenges is self-discovery. Hard moments force you to look inward. You learn what motivates you, what scares you, what drives you, what drains you, what you stand for, what you need to let go of, and what you need to protect. You get closer to your real self, not the version that appears when everything is easy, but the version that emerges when life tests you. That version is clearer, stronger, more authentic, and more grounded. When you start seeing challenges this way, your mindset shifts. You stop asking why something happened and start asking what it's trying to develop within you. You stop resisting pressure and start working with it. You stop feeling like life is attacking you and start seeing that it's preparing you. Growth hides inside frustration, uncertainty, and difficulty, waiting for someone patient enough to uncover it. Simplicity and stillness improve decision-making. It's one of those principles that sounds almost too gentle to matter, yet when you look closely at the moments in your life, when you made your worst decisions, a pattern appears. They almost always happened when your mind was cluttered, rushed, distracted, or overwhelmed. Modern life pulls you in dozens of directions at once. Notifications, responsibilities, expectations, comparisons, deadlines, noise. There's rarely a moment when the world isn't trying to grab your attention. But the mind was never designed to operate well in constant chaos. It performs best when things are simple, when there is space to think, when there is room for silence. Simplicity and stillness aren't luxuries, they are tools for clarity. When your life becomes overly complicated, every decision feels heavier than it real. Lie is. Small choices feel like burdens, big choices feel like crises, and your mind switches into survival mode instead of evaluation mode. In a cluttered environment, you're more reactive and less thoughtful. You respond out of habit instead of intention. You choose the quickest solution instead of the best one, because your attention is pulled in too many directions. Complexity creates noise, and noise makes it impossible to hear your own judgment clearly. But when you simplify your space, your routines, your habits, you create mental space. In that space, decisions become cleaner. Stillness plays the same role. When you give your mind moments of quiet, the fog lifts. You start to see what matters and what doesn't. You begin to notice the thoughts beneath your thoughts. the deeper instincts, the subtle signals, the gut feelings that get drowned out when you're moving too fast. Stillness doesn't mean doing nothing. It means pausing long enough to let your mind settle. Just like muddy water clears when left undisturbed, a busy mind clears when given a moment of stillness. People often believe that great decisions come from speed, intensity, or constant action. But if you look at the greatest leaders, thinkers, and creators, you'll find something different. They protect quiet time. They avoid unnecessary complexity. They strip away the non-essential. They slow down not because they are lazy, but because they understand that clarity requires space. You can't expect to think well when your mind is running at full speed every second. Simplicity in your lifestyle also shapes your thinking. When your environment is cluttered, your attention becomes scattered. When your routines are chaotic, your energy becomes drained. When your priorities are unclear, your decisions become conflicted. By simplifying physical spaces, your desk, your room, your digital world, you remove distractions before they even reach your mind. This doesn't mean living rigidly or minimally. It simply means removing what doesn't support you, so the things that do can stand out more clearly. Routines are another form of simplicity. When certain parts of your day run on predictable patterns, your mind saves energy for important decisions. Without routines, every day feels like improvisation, and improvisation consumes mental bandwidth. A simple morning routine creates stability. A simple nighttime routine creates rest. A simple workflow creates focus. When your daily life is simplified, decision-making becomes easier because you're not mentally exhausted from dozens of unnecessary choices. Stillness also trains emotional clarity. When you're constantly in motion, you don't give yourself time to process emotions. They pile up, blend together, and spill into your decisions. You may think you're making a logical choice, but unresolved stress or frustration is pushing you. Stillness allows you to separate emotion from insight. It helps you understand what you're truly feeling, instead of reacting to surface-level impulses. When you can see your emotions clearly, you can influence them instead of being influenced by them. There's also a deep connection between stillness and intuition. When your mind is quiet, you begin to sense the direction you're naturally pulled toward. Intuition isn't magic. It's the subconscious noticing patterns before your conscious mind catches up. But intuition can only speak in silence. When your mind is flooded with noise, you lose touch with those internal signals that often guide you toward better choices. Simplicity also helps you prioritize. When everything feels important, nothing truly is. Complexity creates the illusion that you must do everything at once. Stillness shows you what actually deserves your energy. When you slow down, you note which tasks matter and which ones you're only doing out of habit or pressure. You begin to see which relationships drain you and which ones support you. You understand which goals are meaningful and which ones you chased for external approval. Prioritization becomes clearer when noise is removed. In moments of stress, stillness becomes even more important. When you feel overwhelmed, the instinct is to do more, rush faster, push harder. But this usually leads to mistakes or burnout. A brief moment of stillness, a breath, a pause, a step back, can change the entire outcome of a decision. In that pause, your nervous system resets, your perspective widens, You can see past the immediate problem and understand the bigger picture. This is why some of the best decisions are made not in the middle of chaos, but in the moments of quiet reflection afterward. Consider how your mind works when you simplify commitments. When you stop saying yes to everything, you give yourself space to say yes to the right things. Overcommitting turns your life into a maze, and navigating a maze makes decision-making slow and stressful. But when you protect your time, your decisions become aligned with your values instead of driven by pressure. Simplicity gives your mind permission to focus on what you truly want instead of what everyone else wants from you. Even your digital life affects your clarity. Constant scrolling, endless messages, non-stop alerts, they fragment your attention. Every notification pulls your mind away from the present moment. When your attention is constantly divided, decision-making becomes shallow because your thinking is interrupted before it can go deep. Reducing digital noise, turning off unnecessary notifications, limiting screen time, creating boundaries around online activity, gives your mind room to breathe. With fewer mental interruptions, your thoughts become sharper and more connected. Stillness also teaches patience. When you slow down, you stop expecting instant answers. You learn to sit with confusion for a while, letting clarity develop naturally. Many decisions are damaged because they're rushed. Stillness helps you tolerate uncertainty without forcing a premature conclusion. It gives ideas time to mature. It gives problems time to reveal their real cause. Patience isn't stagnation. It's allowing wisdom to form instead of grabbing the first solution you see. Simplicity and stillness also work together to reduce fear-based decisions. Fear thrives in clutter and noise. When your mind is overwhelmed, fears multiply. You imagine worst-case scenarios, you exaggerate risks, and you assume dangers that may not exist. But when life is simple and the mind is still, fear loses its grip. You gain perspective. You see options instead of threats. You notice possibilities instead of limitations. And while fear still exists, it no longer dictates your choices. There's a quiet confidence that grows from a simple and still mind. You no longer need to rush to decisions because you trust your ability to think clearly. You no longer feel pressured to react because you understand the value of pausing. You no longer need to seek external validation because you have enough internal space to listen to your own judgment. This kind of confidence isn't loud or aggressive. It's steady. It's grounded. It's built on clarity, not impulse. Life will always have complexity, noise, and movement. The world won't slow down for you. But you can slow down within the world. You can choose simplicity over chaos, stillness over noise, clarity over confusion. Your decisions shape your future, and your state of mind shapes your decisions. When your inner world becomes simpler and quieter, your outer world begins to make more sense. Discomfort is the gateway to strength. It's a truth people often avoid because discomfort doesn't feel good, doesn't look appealing, and doesn't give instant rewards. Yet if you trace back every meaningful improvement in your life, physical, mental, emotional, financial, or spiritual, you will find discomfort sitting at the door of each one. Discomfort is the signal that you're stepping into territory that can shape you. It's the feeling of stretching beyond what's familiar, stable, or easy. Most people run from that feeling, but those who learn to work with it grow in ways they never thought possible. The human mind is wired to seek comfort. Comfort feels safe. It feels predictable. It feels controlled. But comfort is also where growth slows down. When you stay in what's familiar for too long, your skills become stagnant, your confidence weakens, and your potential stays hidden. Discomfort, in contrast, wakes you up. It forces you to pay attention. It invites you to become more than you currently are. Growth and discomfort are always linked. They are partners. You cannot have one without the other. Think about physical training. Muscles grow only when they're pushed beyond their current capacity. That slight burn, the shaking, the final push you almost can't make. That's discomfort. Without it, your body stays the same. Your mind works the same way. Mental strength doesn't come from easy days. It comes from tasks that challenge your thinking, stretch your concentration, test your discipline, and force you to adapt. Emotional resilience grows in moments when you face fear, uncertainty, or disappointment, and choose to move forward anyway. Discomfort is not an enemy. It is the training ground where strength is built. Many people misunderstand discomfort. They think it means they're off track. They believe that if something feels difficult, then it must not be right. But difficulty is not a signal to stop. It's a signal that you're expanding. The first time you try anything new, speaking in public, starting a business, learning a skill, building a habit, it feels awkward. It feels unfamiliar. It feels uncomfortable. That's not failure. That's the beginning of transformation. Comfort only comes after you've worked through discomfort long enough for the new behavior to become natural. Discomfort also exposes your limits, but not in a discouraging way. It shows you the exact boundary between who you are and who you could become. When you feel discomfort, you're standing at that edge. Most people retreat because staying the same feels safer. But those who lean in, even a little at a time, discover that the edge was not a wall, it was a doorway. On the other side is strength you didn't know you had. Growth is a series of moments where you choose to stay with the discomfort instead of backing away from it. There is also clarity hidden inside discomfort. When something challenges you, it forces you to confront your fears, your assumptions, your excuses, and your habits. You learn what scares you and why. You learn what you avoid and what you resist. You learn which parts of your identity need updating. Discomfort exposes the truth, and truth is necessary for growth. You can't fix what you never face. You can't develop what you never challenge. Discomfort brings these buried parts of you to the surface, so you can transform them. Discomfort changes your relationship with fear. Fear often tries to convince you that discomfort is danger, but the two are not the same. Discomfort is a stretch, not a threat. Once you learn to separate the two, you stop being controlled by fear. You realize that feeling nervous doesn't mean you're incapable. Feeling uncertain doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. Feeling pressure doesn't mean you're failing. Fear loses its power when discomfort becomes something you understand instead of something you run from. There's also a hidden confidence that grows through discomfort. When you endure something difficult, even a small difficulty, you prove something to yourself. You learn that you can handle pressure. You learn that you won't break. You learn that you're capable of doing hard things. Confidence is not built by avoiding challenge. It's built by surviving it. Each uncomfortable moment becomes a deposit in your internal bank of self-belief. Over time, those deposits add up, creating a foundation of strength you can rely on. Discomfort also teaches discipline. When you face something challenging, the temptation to quit is strong. But every time you choose to continue, you strengthen your discipline. Discipline doesn't come from motivation, it comes from pushing yourself when motivation fades. Discomfort is where discipline is born. You learn to act even when you don't feel like it. You learn to stay consistent even when progress feels slow. You learn to honor your commitments even when they aren't convenient. That discipline becomes one of the most powerful tools you carry through life. Another form of strength discomfort creates is adaptability. When you're placed in a situation that's unfamiliar, you're forced to adjust. You find new ways to solve problems. You think creatively. You develop resilience. Adaptability is one of the most valuable life skills because life constantly shifts. Plans change, circumstances shift, opportunities come and go. The more comfortable you are with discomfort, the easier it becomes to adapt to life's changes instead of resisting them. Discomfort also reveals your values. When things are easy, you don't question much. But when something challenges you, you start to see what matters. You learn what you're willing to sacrifice for your goals. You learn what you're committed to. You learn who you want to be. If a goal is meaningful, discomfort becomes something you're willing to face. If a goal isn't meaningful, discomfort exposes your lack of interest. This clarity saves you time, energy, and years of chasing things that don't fulfill you. In relationships, discomfort teaches communication, patience, empathy, and boundaries. Growth in relationships never comes from pretending everything is fine. It comes from difficult conversations, admitting mistakes, listening deeply, and facing emotional truths you'd rather avoid. Healthy relationships grow through moments of discomfort handled with honesty and care. Avoiding emotional discomfort prevents connection. Embracing it strengthens it. In personal ambition, discomfort is the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Every dream requires you to do things that feel uncomfortable, taking risks, learning skills, facing criticism, accepting uncertainty, showing up consistently. The dream doesn't demand confidence, it demands willingness. Willingness to be uncomfortable long enough for growth to happen. The people who achieve extraordinary things are not necessarily more talented. They are simply more willing to endure discomfort in the pursuit of growth. Even failure, one of the greatest sources of discomfort, carries strength within it. Failure humbles you. It teaches you to adjust. It forces you to evaluate your approach. It narrows your focus. It deepens your resilience. People who avoid the discomfort of failure often end up stuck. People who face failure and learn from it grow faster and stronger. Failure isn't the end, it's part of the train. Discomfort makes you better because it exposes what needs improvement. Life will always present moments of discomfort. You can avoid them and remain the same, or you can step into them and grow. Discomfort isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's the gateway to becoming stronger, wiser, more patient, more resilient, and more capable. Every time you choose to embrace discomfort, you take a step toward the person you're meant to become. The obstacles you face aren't here to stop you. They're here to shape you. Every challenge, every setback, every moment of resistance is an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more capable. The next time life blocks your path, don't turn back. Lean in, learn, and let the obstacle become your way forward.